Let's talk about alien lifespans. Now, most speculation on alien lifespans in science fiction is way too humanocentric. Everyone knows humans live, 60, 70, 80, 90 years, so aliens probably live that long. But how long do creatures live on Earth? So this is a picture of me a few years back with my former dog, Naomi. I say former because Naomi died when she was 17. Really pretty good for a dog. Now, I have two new dogs, which are going on 4 years old. Now, I'm almost 65, but I'm in good health. I expect to outlive both of these mutts. Now, for a while, I kept ferrets. They were terrific pets. I love my ferrets, but they live even shorter than dogs or cats. Supposedly, they can last up to 10 years, but none of mine made it that long. I also kept guinea pigs and rats. They have even shorter lifespans, and there are creatures that have even shorter lifespans. Humans are unusually long-lived. For example, only a few types of spiders live longer than a year. This makes sense because the winter kills them, so they lay an egg mass in the fall. It hides out through the winter in its silk. In the spring, it hatches into baby spiders. They turn into, black widows or whatever, and they build their webs, have more egg masses. Then they die with the first frost. So spiders live from spring to fall. That's how it is for 99% of them. There's a few exceptions like tarantulas, but generally that's the case. It's also true of many insects. A lot of insects live about a year because that's the year cycle. It's not true of all. Houseflies, for example, from egg to death live only about a month. That's from egg to when they die of old age. That's nothing, right? So one question becomes, what counts as lifespan? Do eggs count? What about larvae? Well, here's the picture of a mayfly. Famously, mayflies, at least some types, only live for 1 day. But this is misleading because they only live 1 day as an adult. They mate, they lay eggs. These eggs take a few weeks to hatch, and then you have a naiad. The naiad takes 1 or sometimes 2 years before it reaches adulthood. Now, of course, with only 1 day as an adult to mate, all the naiads have to emerge and become adults at the same moment. But I would argue that really mayflies live for almost a year. They're only adults for 1 day. Another extreme example is the 17-year locust, which shows up periodically here in Texas, more than once every 17 years because there's multiple, breeding lots of them. 17 years, eating tree roots, then they come out for a couple months as an adult tops. And that's it. So do they only live a couple months? No, they live 17 years, almost exactly, but it's, most of the 17 years is eating tree roots. Now, intelligence doesn't seem to have anything to do with lifespan. Octopi and other cephalopods are incredibly smart. They're almost up to primate level, but octopi only live a few months. Even the giant squid only lives about 5 years. Maybe not that long. So let's look at a cow. A cow lives a lot longer than a giant squid, but it grows to full size in just a year or two, and they're huge. They reach 1,000 pounds in 18 months. What's going on with humans? We're an outlier. Not only do we live longer than any other mammal, and we're even long-lived compared to some long-lived animals like parrots that can go for 60 or more years. Now, yeah, there's some giant tortoises that live longer than we do, but that's about it. Humans get old, really old. My dad's 92. He's in good health. My wife's dad, who passed away just last December, was 96. He had an amazing life, by the way. He fought in World War II. He was in Argentina during the Falklands War. He took my wife to Chile to raise her there. He did a lot of things. So we can get a lot done in these long years we can sometimes attain. But we grow really slowly. Like I said, a cow weighs 1,000 pounds in 18 months. A human that weighs 1,000 pounds, there's probably only been 1 or 2 of us that ever did it, and we didn't do it in 18 months. Now, when I was first playing D&D, back as a college student in 1974, yes, that's the year it came out, that's when I played it, I was wondering how long monsters lived. Now, I was a biology student, I had studied biology, I knew animals were weird, and I naturally assumed that other animals would have shorter lifespans. Humans have a really long lifespan, so other things but shorter. So I actually wrote to Gary Gygax and asked how long it takes for a troll to become an adult. And in my head, I was thinking, trolls aren't humans, they're weird natural things. Maybe they take a year or a couple years, something like that. And Gygax sent me back a letter, and he said it took a troll 18 years or so to become an adult. Okay. And I was like, okay, this is completely bogus, because why would a troll take the same length of time as a human? It's not a human. And that actually set me forth to write my own games with, I hoped, more legitimate science. So thanks, Gary Gygax, for opening my eyes to the fact that you didn't know anything about biology at the time. That was useful to me. I really appreciate it. I'm serious. Of course, there are creatures which are in effect immortal. Okay? Crocodiles and lobsters don't die naturally. They have to be killed. Amoebas are essentially immortal. And here's how it works. Here is the amoeba. It mitoses to reproduce. It breaks into two amoebas, right? Well, is it dead? No. Which one of these is it? Well, we don't know, but it's clearly that amoeba is still alive. Then it mitoses again and keeps going. That means that because it reproduces in this way by mitosis, even though obviously some of the amoebas die, each amoeba can trace back an unbroken line of being an amoeba for, hundreds of millions of years. A straight steady back. Does that mean the amoeba is hundreds of millions of years old? I can't see any argument against it. And there's some plants, trees, fungus mats. These live incredibly long times. I'm not talking about trees like the bristlecone pine, which is 4,000 years old. I'm talking about trees like the huge aspen forest, which is 35,000 years old. So there's a huge range of possible lifespans on Earth. Okay? Animals are comparatively short. Plants vary. I mean, there's really short-lived plants, obviously. Some things are immortal. There's, our happenstance of we become an adult in about 16, 20 years. We live about 90 years. That's, we're the only thing that does that. In my role-playing games, I came up with a race called the ephemerans that I've used on my players. And the idea of them is kind of a fun prank. Basically, the players fall asleep and they wake up, and over them is this tree, and it's full of these little creatures. And the creatures are what I call the ephemerans. And when they wake up, the ephemerans are arguing that the world is going to end soon, because the ephemerans are studying the sun come up, and they can tell that in 12 hours it's going to go down, and then the whole world will be plunged into darkness forever. That'll be the end of the world. Because this is the only day they've ever been alive. So usually I have the ephemerans be really nice guys. They're fun, they're smart, they can talk. They join up with the party and they go wandering. And then by the afternoon or so, they're dying of old age. And usually the players are sad. It's an interesting encounter to give to the players to have these ephemerans. Sometimes they'll go back the next day to see if there's more ephemerans, but there aren't till next year, because that's how it works. The ephemerans in our extreme case, they're a fantasy race that lives for a day. And let's consider how something that short-lived can be intelligent. They're more of a gag, right? Let's look at birds. Corvids, they aren't short-lived. They're long-lived, but that's not the point. The point is that they're small. These are ravens, crows, and jays. They're really smart. They will actually use traffic, to crack open nuts. They have self-control. They can refrain from doing something right now because there's not a reason to do it. They can make tools. In 2014, some scientists concluded that crows were as good at reasoning as a 7-year-old human. Maybe better, because crows can fly, they can build nests, they can gather food, they can raise young, and so forth. Parrots are also super smart, and some have learned to actually understand words and use them properly in sentences. Why am I bringing this up? Because a crow's brain is only 14 to 15 grams, about half an ounce. How can it pack so much intelligence into that tiny space? Well, part of the way the crow does it is to pack in a lot of hardwired information. Crows don't need to be taught to build nests. It's instinct. Instinct is genetic, and it's a really useful way to pack behavior into an animal's brain without taking up space. Crows rely heavily on instincts. They also have a lot more neurons per cubic millimeter of brain than humans do. A crow's brain is simply denser, a lot denser. For example, take these two animals, the macaque and the macaw. The macaque's brain is as big as a lemon. The macaw's brain is smaller than a walnut, but the macaque has the same number of neurons as the macaw, and the macaw's probably smarter. So if you had a dense brain like a macaw or a bird, or even denser because you're an alien thing, and you could hardwire behaviors. For example, what if your language is hardwired? You don't have to learn to speak. It's just there. You could have a short-lived animal with a high intelligence, because it doesn't take a long time to grow a crow's brain, but that animal could be very small. In fact, a crow is full size very quickly. Now, how small am I talking about? A cow is full size in 2 years. Why am I worried about size? Because what I want is an alien species with a really short lifespan. Like, not 2 years is long for this. I want someone that's less than a day. This means these aliens would not have much time for growth. It has to get on with this life cycle. Language, culture, learning, all needs to be hardwired. It doesn't have time to learn much. One way maybe it could handle this is if it has some kind of inherited memory from its ancestors. In other words, things its ancestors knew, it might know, or at least a selected part of those memories. So it's intelligent and it's small. How can it breed so rapidly, though, in a single day? Here is a picture of E. coli. It can double in size every 15 minutes if enough nutrients are available. If E. coli can do it, the fact is you could design a metabolism for a larger creature that can also do it. The principles are the same. It's doing the same things. It's using ATP. It's using glucose. It's just doing it a slightly different way. So we can have a larger creature grow as fast as E. coli. And if we do this, we can look at other very fast-growing organisms on Earth. There's some types of bamboo that can grow a yard or more in a single day. That isn't doubling its size, but that's a lot of mass. And with plants, almost 100% of that mass is taken from the atmosphere and the soil as carbon dioxide and water. Yes, there's other minerals, but really carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen is just from the air and water. All the other minerals are really minor. They're less than 3% of a human, even less in plants. So you can grow a very large plant from a very small amount of soil as long as you have water. That's why we have hydroponics. So I posited creatures with a super short lifespan for my hyperspace game. I named them salps after an Earth organism I kind of like. Now, Gene Wolfe, in his Shadow of the Torturer series, had aliens that had lifespans about the same as a dog, and they admired the humans for our long lives. He was a smart guy. That was kind of a fun thing for him. He didn't go to the point of having organisms that lived only a few hours like I did, but he had a different motivation. Now, you could also use the information here in this lifespan video to posit really long-lived creatures, that go on forever and ever, or that mitose and they have the same memories, and they write whatever you want. The one thing that I think is certain is that alien beings would not have the same lifespan we do. If we go by the example of Earth, lifespans are all over the place, from mere days to eternity. It's unlikely that even aliens who are our size would have our same lifespan. Animals on Earth with our size don't have our lifespan, right? Alligators with our size live forever. Dogs with our size live like 7 years. There's no guarantee that these aliens would be long-lived because the long-lived animals on Earth are, in fact, not always the most successful.